Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of seeing a therapist. I'm going to talk about my personal experiences in seeing a therapist and how that relates to me in the context of being a computer programmer and a professional and human being in general. But first I would like to thank today's sponsor, X-Team. If you've ever thought about starting a remote freelancing lifestyle, X-Team is a great place to do that. They provide you with jobs from leading brands, steady flow of incoming work. They also provide you with a community of other developers that can support you so that you don't need to be alone in your work. And you can also use these cool freelancing houses where you can that they constantly relocate around the world in beautiful locations where you can work with other developers. It's really interesting concept, and if remote freelancing is something that you're looking into, you should definitely be looking at X-Team. You can find a link in the episode description. Thank you, X-Team. I recently took a big step in my life, something that I've been procrastinating on for a long time, and that is to start seeing a therapist. The reasons why I procrastinated on it are probably very common. I just felt like I didn't need it, or like it was a little bit like admitting to myself that my problems were so bad that I needed help, which is a hard thing to do, especially when it comes to things like personal productivity and mood management and stuff like that. It just like there is a DIY culture around it so much. Like there are these self-improvement channels and self-improvement books that imply that you should just read these books and apply these systems and then you're fine. Like psychologists, that is something that only sick people need. And psychologists also have this little special stigma because like if you go to a doctor and they check you out and say that you're sick, it's a little bit bad. You feel a little bit weak, but it's not as bad as going to a psychologist, because a psychologist implies that you are somehow now broken permanently or something, that you are the kind of neurotic person that needs a psychologist. And I've only like this short time I've been seeing my psychologist, I realize how extremely beneficial this is and how much further I could be as a professional and as a man and as a human and as a friend and as a partner. Always really, if I had started this process sooner, because I can already see how extremely beneficial this will be. And I have also during the last few months encountered situations where people around me have been obviously having problems in their life, like mental issues related to stress, related to how they manage their own behavior patterns and things like that. Basically like sort of self-harm in many ways. Like they could basically really use the help of a psychologist, but they have not sought one. And that's why I'm making this video a little bit. The main thing here is to tell you that I'm seeing a psychologist. And the second reason I'm doing it, or the second purpose, is to just tell you how it works. And then to pull off the veil a little bit, because it's way less complicated and weird than I thought it would be. It's seeing a psychologist today, especially like a cognitive behavioural therapy psychologist that I'm seeing, is remarkably straightforward, and it just feels basically to me like programming my own brain. He provides me a programming language that I can use. I can finally start telling my brain what it is that I want to do and and actually make it do it. So in this video, I'm going to try to edit this video as little as possible in order to be authentic, and I'm going to try to walk you through from why I finally started seeing a psychologist, what the issues are that I have personally, and how I found a psychologist, how it works when I first started seeing him, and where I am right now. So I'm a person that I've been struggling with intense periods of worry. During these periods, I can awake like 4 o'clock in the morning, just feeling intense worry about a certain issue. Like I'm going to a conference that the liquidity in my company isn't strong enough, that I need to resolve a conflict with this friend, that there's some problem with my relationship, like different things. And this is, I mean, everybody experiences this from time to time, but when you do it like systematically, it becomes very debilitating because the worry makes you sleep less, and the fact that you sleep less causes more worry to be triggered, and it creates like this extremely debilitating cycle where the worry causes you to not deal with the issues that you need to deal with, because the worry is too intense. It's not like this little worry that nudges you to do something. It's completely debilitating. So you create like these patterns where you try to shove the worry away, and like it's just a dreadful situation to be in, and it caused me many much pain. And the second reason why I started recently reaching out to a psychologist is because I have this problem with postponing things, which is intimately connected to the worry. When I have these worry periods, I use different types of procrastination mechanics, like it's like playing computer games is a fantastic such one, or it could be like watching YouTube videos, or it could be hanging out with friends is a great way to hide it. You just like, as soon as a friend calls, I just went for it immediately, so that I didn't have to deal with the issues that I needed to deal with, because they were so intimately connected to the worry. And this postponing behavior, where I did like other things than the things I was actually worried about, created, of course, more worry about the things that I should be worried about, and it created like this horrible cycle. And I think that like a lot of people, when hearing this, talk about, well, doesn't everybody have this? And yes, I think so. I think that this behavior is a little bit like commonly human. But I also talked with a friend of mine. She said that when she expressed this, I said like, yes, but have you ever neglected to pay a bill for like months? Have you ever in my first company, I actually was convicted of minor tax crime because I neglected to do my taxes on time for pretty much like, I don't know how long it was, like 6 months or something. It was like an incredible feat of procrastination, and that hurt me from an economical standpoint so badly. It was just ludicrous how this thing that should have been simple to do with just a few minutes work per day managed to cause me all this harm. This is something that I've had for many years, but finally this year I decided that it was time to do this, because I was not getting anything done really during the weeks. It was just marvelous how little of my week was effective, and I realized that I need to deal with this now. So how do you go about finding a psychologist? I think that different people have different ways, but I had a friend of mine who is a psychologist, and I described my set of issues to her and asked her what kind of therapist I should be looking for, and she recommended that I should find a cognitive behavioural therapist or a ACT therapist. And I actually found that there is a kind of price runner, like price comparison, like site for psychologists in Sweden called Ahum.se. Might be somewhere like a similar one in your country if you're lucky. And they basically had a form where I could just like fill in what it was that is troubling me, and they just generated a search result of different psychologists, and I just jumped through them and looked at what they cost and like what their expertises are, and I found one that, well, I felt like, hey, this seems like a person that could help me out with my issues, and I reached out to him and booked a time, and that was pretty much it. The price of this thing it's rather expensive in one way. Every session costs about 100 euros, a little bit more, 100 euros. And I thought that seemed scary expensive until I kind of calculated the cost that these issues were having on me, and also when I actually saw him, I realized that this time is extremely efficient. He's very, very interested in solving issues very fast. So one thing that I was surprised by was how cost effective the entire thing seems to be, actually. There's also like a number of things in Sweden that allows you to do this in a tax deductible way on your company, and because I'm telling you this because for me a big blocker was that this in my mind was very expensive, but as a software developer you can probably afford it. It might even be that your company affords you to do this on the company dime, depending on what company you work for. So before you dismiss it as expensive, do actually look into what it costs and what your options are. But anyway, the first meeting was basically diagnostics. What he did was talked a little bit about me. I had described about what made me come here, and I talked a little bit about the issues that I described before. And he spent a little bit of time on my family and family history, but there was absolutely no "tell me about your mother" thing. That's not what cognitive behavioral therapists do. They are not so much interested in the source of problems. They don't view the source as super critical to figure out the solution for a problem. Instead, they are interested in finding out what the problem is and how to solve it. So we ended up on this issue of me postponing things and why I do that, because in the end, I have very little issues with isolated worry in my life. The worry tends to be caused by the procrastination. So once we identified this problem as the area that we wanted to work with, he started describing it from a cognitive behavioral therapy standpoint. And it's remarkably well documented and well thought out how this works. So the example that he used was the snooze button. It's like the alarm rings in the morning and you hit snooze, and immediately you get relief from this oncoming day, and you get 10 more minutes, and then the alarm rings again, and you just get, oh my god, the day, I don't want to do these issues today, I just want to keep sleep, I'd snooze, and instant relief again. You get like 10 minutes respite or whatever your snooze time in from the day. And like after a little while, usually when I snooze, I do get anxietic about it and like feeling bad about myself and stuff like that. But the problem is that that feeling, the negative feeling, comes too late. It comes a little while after the relief. And the way habit construction works in a human or a mammal is that you reward the behavior, like the behavior that manifests that you start building comes from that relief. So when you get frustration of going to work, you press this, you learn that if you press the snooze button, you get relief. It doesn't really matter that it has negative consequences later down the line. You don't learn from that. You learn from the immediate effect. That's how these habits are constructed, and that is also why they are so strong. The same thing also happens with alcohol consumption. Like many people like myself have woken up on Sunday morning feeling absolutely garbage. You feel horrible. You regret everything you did yesterday. You feel physically nauseous and like it's just like garbage. And you tell yourself, I'm never drinking again, and then you're drinking again the next weekend. And the reason for this is that the negative consequences of alcohol comes too late. Like we learn the behavior like very closely to when we are drinking alcohol. Like it has a very specific taste that might be nice to us, and then the alcohol hits us with all the goody dopamine, serotonin. I don't know what alcohol induces, but it's good stuff thanks to the brain. And so the brain basically learns alcohol, good, and then the habit is formed. And then he went on to explain how the technique in cognitive behavioral therapy to break these habit loops, these negative habit loops, is to inverse this and have the frustration itself, like the bad feeling of oh my god, I don't want to go to work, I kind of want to snooze, like that frustration, I want to escape, I don't want to start the day. Use that frustration and instead associate that staying in that feeling with another reward that is positive, such as like maybe eating a nice breakfast or something. Also turned out that my psychologist is a gamer, so we talked about this in gaming terms, because even though I'm very bad at doing this when it comes to work, I'm very good at doing it when it comes to games. A lot of people like casual games. I don't like casual games. I like when games are like really, really hard. I'm like this 8-bit generation. And I like when games are like these insane, frustrating things that go on for hours and hours and hours. And then I finally break that boss, and after many, many attempts, and then the reward. And I can do this because as a kid, I got trained that this frustration, like this feeling of not being able to do it, even though it's a bad feeling, I know that it gives a reward in the end, and that is so satisfying. So that allows me to push myself through these long ass boss levels that are largely unpleasant in order to get a reward at the end, because my brain has been trained in this gradually over the years. And in the set, that's basically what we're trying to do as well with my bad habits loops. But I'm jumping ahead a little bit because habit breaking comes a little bit later. What he did was like, so the first session was to figure out what it was that was the problem. Second session was to talk about that specific problem domain and the terms of cognitive behavioral therapy. And then at the end of that session, he gave me a home assignment of basically logging every time I do these avoidance behaviors. So avoidance behaviors for me could be like watching pumpy YouTube videos about productivity, or sometimes like a new release iPhone that somehow that just gives me, I don't know, relief or dopamine hit like from work. So whenever I feel like, oh, I should be doing this edit of this video, I really need it done for Friday, but let's just check this iPhone release video. I can check an insane amount of like iPhone review videos, even though I'm not even gonna buy the new iPhone. I just like watching them for some reason. It's bizarre. But somehow, like, it's not important why they give me a dopamine hit. It's just important that they do, and they like. Another thing I do is go for walks. I just like, oh, I'm a little bit tired, I'm not motivated, I should be going for a walk, which isn't necessarily bad. The problem is that I tend to like go for a longer walk and extend it and extend it and extend it. And it's the same thing with like going for a cup of coffee. Like I tend to not just go for a cup of coffee, I tend to like sit down and wait for it to boil, and then I sit down and like watch perhaps a little bit of YouTube video while waiting for the coffee to kick in. Maybe I'll talk with a colleague, like tend to extend them as well. So yeah, like a bunch of those behaviors. I won't go into like all of them because like it's such a long list. I think I had like identified 10 different types that I really didn't know that I had. And I also was like completely dismayed in how much time this takes up in a week. It's just nuts. I think that on a bad week, I think that more than half of my week could just be consumed with these avoidance behaviors. So I spend like actually more time avoiding the tasks than actually doing tasks. And all of these tasks are like avoidance behaviors are often rather pointless or like diluted behaviors. So they are it's really bad, Even in the cases where some of the avoidance behaviors were actually good, like sometimes I can use a big fun project and I use that as a kind of like way to procrastinate on an issue that I don't want to do. So perhaps like imagine like a cool like a rewrite of a system. Oh, that's fun. That's nice to do. Like making it nice, and it really needs to be nice because I go to a system. But if I use that to procrastinate on doing my taxes, then that nice rewrite, that nice work is actually going to get poisoned by the worry that procrastinating on the taxes generates. I'm like constantly while I'm working on that, I'm gonna like constantly feel this worry subdued under the weight of the fun task, and eventually the fun task is gonna feel bad about working on it because I've just poisoned it with this procrastination, this worry, and it just creates like this ongoing like that nothing is fun anymore. And that is with the situation where I eventually found myself. And that itself led to like feelings of inadequacy, which led to more worry, which led to more feelings of unique. It's all like a chain of things. So 2 weeks after that, I come back with my log, and we walk through it on a whiteboard, of course. It's not this place where he has his practice. It's just it's meeting rooms, really. They have slightly comfier chairs than your average meeting room at work as a programmer, but it's really just a meeting room. And I just went into like, yeah, let's whiteboard this up. And he was like, yes, this is excellent. So we just like wrote on the whiteboard all like the different classes of avoidance behaviors that I had, and categorized them like differently. We found a couple of ones that were called that were particularly bad. That was causing a lot of, like, eating up a lot of time. But some of them are harder than others to do, especially like if something is a fun task, it's really hard to stop yourself from doing it. Might also be like one of my things are like I just grab a cigarette sometimes, because it's kind of like cigarette is an excellent procrastination thing, because you have to go out and do it, and usually someone there to talk to, and it's just like a very, very clever, very good from a procrastination standpoint, or effective for like, it's a strong procrastinator. And that also has like a biological component. So it's like the physical effect that it has is very connected to like how your body works, and that makes it a little bit harder to attack. So what you do is to go for more lower hanging fruit first, in order to build the skill of breaking these loops. Yeah, the sun is changing the light here. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Oh my god. The 3 avoidance behaviors that we end up starting to attack was having coffee, going for walks, and looking at YouTube videos. And the way you start breaking this is that you need some work behavior, the thing that you're trying to avoid. So, like, for me, it's basically like working on some project that I need to get done. This can be just like coding on issues on your project or whatever. And at first, I thought that he meant like, okay, do like a unit of work, like a Pomodoro, if you're familiar with the concept, or like solve one bug and then reward yourself. And he was like, no. Like, that's the size of the task is not like, needs to be much smaller, and it really doesn't matter if the size is big or not, like, because that's not what we're going for. We're going to create like this loop of frustration leads to a reward loop. So the way you do it is that we selected 2 different work tasks that we could be doing. So the first work task was 2 minutes of work on a task, just 2 minutes. So I have like this like handy little timer. Can we see that? Okay, see that. Honestly, I have to draw down these blinds. This is nuts. There we go. So the way you break these behaviors is by selecting 2 work behaviors. And the work behaviors were like work for 2 minutes on a task. Yes, 2 minutes with this little timer here. Use, or you could use whatever timer really, but I like this because it's a hardware timer. And once you do the 2 minutes, then you do the avoidance behavior, because that turns the same behavior into a reward behavior. So as soon as you find yourself, as soon as I find myself in like going for the alarm is being silence. As soon as I find myself going for going to youtube.com and clicking that video, I catch myself, and I do this little work unit, feeling the frustration of, oh, I don't want to start, oh, I'm frustrated, like I don't really want to feel like doing this, and it's like, oh, I would rather be doing other things, and like allow myself to feel that frustration a little bit. Not be too afraid of the frustration and feel like, okay, maybe this wasn't really so bad, but just for a little while, still feel the frustration. And then after these 2 minutes, then I look at a YouTube video. So you wallow in the frustration, and then you reward yourself. So you connect the frustration to the reward, instead of instead of your previous behavior where you feel the frustration and you do the reward or the avoidance behavior immediately in order to like hide away the thing, and you never do any work behavior in between. So when you have these things described, when I describe these things, they seem rather self-evident, like, at least to me, but there is such a big benefit from having a professional that has seen these issues and can see these issues clearly in you and describe them back to you, and then create a plan for you that you follow up with accountability, and then give you like these good manageable amounts of work and like practice that you can do. I think that if it wasn't for him, I would probably try to do this with 2 big time units at the time, try to squeeze in entire pomodoros before I rewarded myself. I wouldn't be able to know such subtleties that if the work unit isn't really small, you just don't really build the habit loop correctly, and you won't be able to do it as many times as is required to create a new habit loop. So that is basically where I am with my psychologist. We're gonna see how it goes. I must say that I really like it so far, and I didn't realize that it was gonna be this much fun. It's really interesting to get this vocabulary and this tool set to actually tell my brain what to do. I've always felt that the brain as a computer is very hard to properly program. I feel like cognitive behavioral therapy allows me to do that. And that's what I wanted to share. Like, it wasn't as scary or weird or as dramatic as I thought it would be. It's just basically a person you go to regularly for a while, or for a long while, depending on your how long your issues take to solve, or how many issues you want to solve, for a while, and just work things out, really. It's nothing more than that. Doesn't mean you're weak. I certainly feel stronger already after having this. Doesn't mean that you're sick. Doesn't mean that you're admitting defeat. Doesn't mean that you're less autonomous. It just means that you're dealing with your problems, and you're like hiring a professional to help you. It's like being a I don't know, professional sportsy person and having like a coach, I guess. I recommend it strongly. That's what I wanted to say. Don't forget to check out our sponsor X-Team if you're interested in doing remote freelancing. You can find a link in the episode description. You have watched an episode of Fun Function. I release new material every week, and I do live streams on Twitch every week. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel by clicking here, or watch another video like this one by clicking here. I am MPJ. Until next Monday morning, stay curious.